Well, it was just Christmas, which means watching some Christmas movies are in order. So, first order of business is Elf, the modern classic. Now, you might think that's a bit high praise, but this seriously is a movie that I see people 50 years from now continuing to watch. And I think a big part of that is that Elf harkens back to the spirit of the older Christmas movies, especially with the claymation dolls that are akin to Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and a few other claymation spin-off movies that happened during the 70s. Now, even though I call it a modern classic, this is by far not in the same caliber as, say, It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street. It is, however, I believe, the best that we can hope for to come out of mainstream media for Christmas nowadays. And honestly speaking, it is relatively clean, and especially considering the title character, Will Ferrell, it is amazingly clean, and it has only been one of two movies that I actually enjoy Will Ferrell's performance in, or actually it's only one of two movies that I have actually watched Will Ferrell in, because I do not like Will Ferrell and the movies he makes. But this is one of the two, and I like both of them, and this is a Christmas movie, so I watched it, and it's funny. That's the biggest selling point for Elf, is that it is insanely funny. And even more than being funny, it is amazingly quotable. I mean, I didn't realize it until I watched this movie, but the lines, they just become part of your vocabulary. At least they have for my family. And my sister and my mom actually saw this movie before I did. So I learned all this stuff from them. I heard about these lines before I actually watched the movie. And kind of knowing those lines beforehand, I'm sure makes for a different viewing experience than if you haven't ever watched the movie before, but you will realize that there's quite a few good lines in this movie. Ed Asner is the perfect Santa, at least in my opinion. He plays the role very, very well, and one thing is for certain, you cannot take this movie too seriously. If you don't want to laugh, if you want to think seriously, this movie is definitely not for you, but it is a comedy, and if you're willing to laugh, you're willing to have a little bit of fun, and if you're willing to suspend your disbelief and believe in this extremely naive character, you'll have a lot of fun. Now, that is one thing. I know that he can come across as being extremely annoying to some people. I find it funny, but I can totally see people being like, this person irritates the living daylights out of me. So, yeah, he can come across a bit annoying. I would just call him extremely naive, and I think that adds to the charm and humor of the movie. The cinematography, at least when you look at it from the aspect of how they made the elves seem so small, when in fact these are full-size people. They were short people, like on the lower end of 5 feet, but they were, regular sized people. But with how they did the cinematography, it made Will Ferrell look so much bigger. Is just amazing. If you happen to have DVD of it and you watch the special features, they kind of go into it. And I just find that sort of stuff amazing. I just eat it up. So that's pretty cool. Also, the music is awesome. It changes from old and kind of whimsical, once again, kind of getting the feeling of those old Christmas movies, but it has a very jazzy Christmas soundtrack as well, which, if you know me, I love jazz, and jazzy Christmas songs are right up my alley. The only singing, or music, I should say, that isn't up my alley is buddy singing, which is painfully terrible, which goes into the whole thing that I said earlier, that some people may find it unbearable, which I can totally understand, especially in those scenes. But enough about that. Let's talk about the cast of characters. We already know that Will Ferrell is brilliant as Elf. He does the perfect job of the naive, super happy human who thinks he's an elf, but then finds out he's a human, and he has to go find his real dad. That's basically the plot line of the story, which I probably should have said at the beginning, but hey, now you know, so there. But we have the wonderfully jovial not so jovial. Gimbel's manager, which that's actually his name in the credits. They don't ever give him a name. But he is pretty hilarious. And, you know, there's some quite funny characters. But the more important character that we meet at Gimbel's is Jovi. She's kind of ho-hum. She's just trying to get through the holiday. And Buddy immediately just picks up on her and is immediately attracted to her, and that is our love interest. Zooey Deschanel plays the role of Jovi, and she does a really good job, and she has a really good singing voice, by the way, and that is her voice. But if we're looking at this realistically, we know that any girl who saw Buddy and how he acts, and if showed interest in them, would run, and she doesn't. But once again, this is a comedy. If this sort of thing throws you off, maybe you don't want to watch it, but you just really can't take this movie too seriously. You basically would go, run, Jovi, run. He's a madman, run! The rest of the cast is done well. From Buddy's dad to his stepmom, I guess, and his half-brother. All are done well. James Caan, as Jonathan Acuff said, is the lovable rapscallion who relearns the meaning of Christmas, at least comparative modern understanding of Christmas. Yeah, there's no real mention of Jesus or the reason for the season, but it still touches on very good themes within the movie. Like I said, once again, modern classic. There are going to be some limitations within that very genre, but the spirit of Christmas is talked about with giving, doing things with a right heart, from a good standpoint, and believing, and all of these things I really like. And these are themes that I enjoy very much, and I can glean from it. Once again, this isn't some deep philosophical sort of movie, but there are a few poignant points that are made within the movie, and I think they are done and executed well. There are a few other scenes like the snowball fight and how Buddy absolutely just transforms Gimbals in one night because he was trained by elves and apparently he can do that. It really just bring home the charm and humor of this wonderful flick. There's nothing really greatly moving about it. It's just a very enjoyable and good time, and if you don't have a smile on your face, there's probably something wrong with you, or you really just can't stand Will Ferrell or Buddy. Although I can't stand Will Ferrell, and I found this movie to be enjoyable. So if you don't mind there not being any mentions of Jesus, if you don't mind seeing a movie with Will Ferrell wear green tights, you should like this movie. You should enjoy it, and you should enjoy watching it again and again and again, as my family does every single year. So there's actually going to be one more Christmas movie, one more of a actual classic that I'll be reviewing before all this is through. Why don't you guys go ahead and let me know what some of your favorite Christmas movies are. Go ahead, comment below, like, subscribe, and have a great start to the new year. This is the OutcastWriter, signing off.